A Very Royal Narcissist Part 2. This material was originally created on the 19th of July 2019 as part of an ongoing series to allow people to understand the relevant behaviours of Meghan Markle through the lens of her being a narcissist. Accordingly, these are events and actions which took place at the time that are described and have been categorised to help you understand, and is part of the ongoing series in relation to this individual and her behaviours. Accordingly, there will be further updates, but it was felt appropriate to provide this material so that the complete set is available for you to listen to. Again, do understand that the content of this information is not based upon whether viewing Miss Markle as a good or bad person, but purely as an analysis of her being a narcissist. Prince Harry married Meghan Markle, who is now known as the Duchess of Sussex, and just prior to their wedding, I wrote A Very Royal Narcissist, which identified from the evidence available many determinative factors demonstrating that a narcissist was about to marry into the royal family. A year passed following that, and with such a prominent individual, it was worthwhile once again placing the Duchess under the Tudor scope, once more to ascertain whether the initial determination was incorrect, or whether her behaviours underline and affirm the first determination. There is a plethora of information that can be utilised. In the interest of brevity and accessibility, I have not used everything that is available, and therefore, if there are certain examples and instances which support the finding that are not included, that is why there is just an excess of information available. Before we embark upon this analysis, let me make something patently clear for the hard of understanding. This is nothing to do with race, and if you bleat on about it being racist, you are wrong. The very series has analysed people of both genders and predominantly white people. Narcissism doesn't care what colour somebody is, what gender they are, what orientation they are sexually. This is about narcissism. Not because the Duchess identifies as biracial, through having black and white relatives. It is irrelevant whether she's white, black, yellow or a mixture. Narcissists are white, black, brown, yellow, male, female, transgender, straight, guy, bisexual, religious, not religious. We come in many different packages. This is focused on narcissism and not race. So, if you try and make it all about race, not only have you completely missed the point of this analysis, you're going to make yourself look very stupid. You've been given fair warning. Furthermore, I know that there are other narcissists in the royal family, and they will get their turn under the Tudor scope in due course. So, you don't need to pipe up about that either. Miss Markle is prominent and therefore a very worthwhile subject to enable people to understand more about narcissism to help them. With those points established, let's get down to some analysis. I'd also recommend that you access the empathy cake, because that will help you place the behaviours in a context vis-a-vis empaths, empathic people and normal people. Where narcissistic indicators are identified, they are listed after each example of the behaviour. Something smells off. The marriage ceremony of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, like many others before, along with funerals, took place at St George's Chapel. Miss Markle requested that atomizers be used throughout the chapel for the purpose of removing the apparent musty but not unpleasant smell. It's an old building and therefore has such a smell. Her request was deemed inappropriate. Even when this was pointed out to her, she maintained that she wanted the atomizers placed there. One might overlook not realising it was inappropriate, but then the following insistence is an indicator of narcissistic behaviours of sense of entitlement, poor boundary recognition. Tiara trouble. The Queen apparently had to have stern words with her grandson, Prince Harry, in the lead-up to his wedding after both he and Meghan were upset that she could not wear the tiara she initially picked out from the royal treasury. According to reports, Meghan wanted to wear a tiara studded with emeralds, but because the provenance was not known, the royal family refused. Such refusal is done with good purpose, as if the provenance is not known, this could cause potential future embarrassment to have jewels of dubious provenance paraded by a member of the royal family. There was a very heated exchange that prompted the Queen to speak to Harry, as a consequence of this failure to follow royal protocol. Remember, Miss Markle was well aware that she was marrying into an established institution which has protocols, standards, and responsibilities. It is the Queen who selects the tiara, but both Miss Markle and Prince Harry tried to alter that. It's evident from the first analysis that Prince Harry's demand arose from wanting to please Miss Markle, given her evident influence over him. The Queen stated, "Meghan cannot have whatever she wants. She gets what tiara she's given by me." The message from the Queen was very much Meghan needed to think about how she speaks to staff members and be careful to follow family protocols. This behaviour evidenced a sense of entitlement, triangulation, poor boundary recognition, response to the threat to control. Staff turnover and operation. Problems have arisen with regard to the relationships with staff and the turnover of staff. Now, there are always going to be changes in personnel, and doubtless certain pressures associated with the demanding and high-profile situation will also result in such changes. However, what is noteworthy are the number of resignations, the short period of time held by these people in their positions, and the comment which has surrounded them. This evidences a pattern. Consider this. How often will a narcissist have a haphazard employment history and/or a string of failed relationships? Yet when this is pointed out, the narcissist will always declare that it was the fault of the others and not the narcissist. Such numbers, however, speak for themselves, and even more so with the comments allied to them. Meghan's personal assistant resigned suddenly after just 6 months on the job. Other resignations within the Kensington Palace team include Samantha Cohen, Duke and Duchess of Sussex's private secretary Edward Lane Fox, Prince Harry's private secretary, and Kensington Palace senior communications secretary Katrina McKeever, who left the team in September. The Duchess has been known as the Duchess Difficult by the palace staff since she got married. It's well known how her staff kept leaving her due to her difficult behaviour, which is very unlikely for the members of the royal family. 4 resignations in less than 1 year were no small thing. Following such losses of staff, it is clear that Prince Harry and the Duchess were mindful of risking further losses in staffing and the impression this creates, and therefore opted to manage matters more directly, and did not hire a nanny straight after the birth of their son. Meghan Markle wanted to do everything by herself for her newborn son. She would not even allow her mother Doria to hold the baby in her absence. Hence, appointing a nanny seemed out of the question. Following this period, Harry and the Duchess have now hired a nanny whose name has not been disclosed yet. Unlike Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis's live-in nanny, Maria Borrello, who is a graduate of the famous Norland College, Archie's nanny does not have any such background. Maria Borrello also travels with the royal family whenever they take their children along. Also, this nanny will have a day job and leave in the evening. Weekends will also be the days off for her. As much as the press is eager to see Archie's pictures, they're also curious to know about his nanny. Maria Borrello is almost as famous as Prince George, as she was always seen by his side at the time. However, this time it will be different. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are very private when it comes to their newborn. His birth announcement was also not made in the traditional way. The nanny is not allowed to speak publicly about her role. According to the royal commentator and author Katie Nicholl, the nanny is also supposed to sign an extensive non-disclosure agreement. It is interesting to see how the damaging impression that has arisen as a consequence of these losses in staff has then resulted in the assertion of greater control and the management of appearances through the differing approach with regards to the nanny to the Duke and Justice's son. Narcissistic indicators that are evident: haughty behaviour, lack of empathy, sense of entitlement, assertion of control, response to the threat to that assertion of control, facade management. Use and dispose. The broadcaster Piers Morgan has criticised the Duchess of Sussex, describing her as a piece of work and comparing her behaviour to that of a Kardashian, as opposed to a member of the royal family. It is always entertaining to have one narcissist comment on another. We should not pay so much attention to the language used by Mr. Morgan, but rather than the behaviour that he's referring to. Morgan said that he felt conned by the Duchess, claiming that he was with her before she met Prince Harry for the first time, and never heard from her again because she had met someone more important. I had a bad experience with Meghan Markle. I've talked about it a lot, Morgan said, exhibiting his own pity play and a need to assert control. I'm afraid she's a bit of a piece of work, he added, arguing that Markle drops people as soon as she gets someone more important in her life. Morgan went on to explain how he disapproves of the way the Duchess treats her family, pointing out that none of them bar her mother, Dariah Ragland, were present at her wedding. I was of use to her when it suited her, he explained. I was conned by her. I thought she was nice. I thought she was a nice person. I put her in the cab to meet Harry. Never heard from her again. She met somebody more important, and that was it. Gone. Bang. Ghosted. Morgan, a narcissist himself, responds to this shelving behaviour with a suitable provocative complaint and accompanying pity play. Nevertheless, just because he complains of the behaviour, the fact of it occurring underlines that typical narcissistic behaviour of not showing accountability in a social relationship and using it as a means to an end, having no empathy for the feelings of the other person in that relationship. Morgan is not the only person to complain of such treatment. Following her split from former husband Trevor Engelson, Miss Markle became friendly with the television personality Lizzie Cundy. Miss Markle wanted a new man and said that she had two firm conditions. Firstly, he had to be English, and secondly, he had to be famous, according to Cundy. Cundy explained that she assisted Markle with regard to potential involvement with footballer Ashley Cole, and X Factor winner Matt Cardle. But once Miss Markle began dating Prince Harry, Cundy found she was dropped by Miss Markle and offered just comfort crumbs with regard to their supposed friendship. Narcissistic indicators: sense of entitlement, lack of accountability, grandiosity, lack of emotional empathy, shelving. Wimbledon woe. Back in 2019, the Duchess attended the tennis competition at Wimbledon, and more evidence arose with regard to her behaviour and what it signifies. There was a well-publicised photo where a man who appears to be a royal bodyguard can be seen approaching a man holding his phone. The man holding the phone was 58-year-old Hassan Hassanov, who was accused of invading the Duchess of Sussex privacy when he took a selfie in front of the royal during the match. Hassan insisted that he didn't know Meghan was there when he stopped to take the selfie. I honestly couldn't really care about taking a picture of Meghan, Harry, or any of the royals, and if I did, I'd ask first, he said. I was much more interested in getting a video of Roger Federer in action. The fact that it was assumed that Mr. Hassanov wanted to take a picture of the Duchess might be regarded as grandiosity. However, being a public figure, it is not unreasonable to expect this to happen, and therefore that's an understandable mistake. The manner in which the bodyguard was dispatched and the Duchess's failure to intervene. In the picture, one can see that she's very close to Mr. Hassanov, demonstrates a degree of haughtiness and also the contradictory behaviour often evident with such figures. You must take pictures of me, except when I decide you cannot. The Wimbledon woe did not end there. The Duchess created problems with regard to attending, wearing jeans and failing to watch a Brit play tennis. There appears to be other unspecified behaviour which resulted in Wimbledon officials stating it was a nightmare, she was a nightmare. The Wimbledon official went on without elaborating as to what was meant by that statement. Another source reportedly claimed she wanted to come incognito, but there were problems. They couldn't invite her into the royal box because she was wearing jeans, but that didn't really matter because all she wanted to do was come and watch Serena Williams. Andy Murray was on court one and afterwards, and it was a massive faux pas not to watch a Brit when she signed up to the royal family. Narcissistic indicators: sense of entitlement, poor boundary recognition, contradictory behaviour. The bananas of empowerment. Miss Markle visited 125, a Bristol UK charity which supports female sex workers who are trapped in cycles of poverty, violence and addiction. Miss Markle assisted making packed lunches for the sex workers. Wearing an expensive Oscar de la Renta dress, Miss Markle wrote with a Sharpie on the bananas phrases such as, "You are strong, you are brave, you are loved." A sex worker stated, "People out here struggle to eat and sleep," and she gives us some words on a piece of fruit. There is no doubting that the Duchess meant well through this gesture, but this is the instinctive and unaware behaviour that is associated with mid-range narcissists. Namely, they think they are doing something good, but they can't actually see, because their narcissism blinds them, to how crass and unempathetic their behaviours actually are. What drove this act of apparent charity was the unconscious narcissism, whereby it was predicated on a lofty position that she sees herself as holding. Her words are special, motivating, because, after all, surely the sex worker could regard themselves as strong, brave, loved. But that will not turn matters around for them. No, the words must come from a higher power, namely the Duchess, because her words matter. The Duchess does not realise this manifestation of her narcissism. She of course believes that her gesture was well-intentioned, but failed to realise how condescending and ultimately pointless her act was. In addition, in the footage of this act, you can see Prince Harry immediately recognises that this is a bad move, but he does nothing other than look on as the crass moment unfolds. After all, what Meghan wants, Meghan gets, as his own words came back to haunt him. Her failure to pick up on his discomfort is a further indicator. Grandiosity, magical thinking, lack of emotional empathy. The me again label. Whilst the media relish giving labels, and indeed the media's treatment of Miss Markle at times has been horrendously unpleasant and unwarranted, labels are often provided because there is a basis for them. There are plenty of examples of this. Ralph, 5 times a night Halpin, John, 2 Jags Prescott, Doris Day, the professional virgin, Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, Madonna, the Queen of Pop, and so on. The fact that the Duchess is known as me again demonstrates that there has been a repeated recognition of self-absorbed behaviour and self-promotion witnessed by many others. Evidence is grandiosity, self-entitlement. Pregnancy promenade. Naturally, a mother-to-be is proud of the baby that she is carrying, but the bump pregnancy will be used by a narcissist for the purposes of gaining fuel and asserting control. The Duchess was repeatedly filmed and photographed touching her bump, cradling the bump, flicking her coat open to reveal the bump, and accentuating it. This exaggerating cradling and posing was witnessed many times, including at the British Film Awards, the Mayhew Animal Home Visit, Brinsworth Care Home, and at Admiralty House in Sydney, to name but a few. Not keeping the bump under flowing maternity dresses like previous royal mothers-to-be, but a parade of tight clothing, allied with stances and gestures to highlight the bump, and adopting entirely unnatural poses, contrast how Kate Middleton stood and presented herself, and this taken in context with all the other behaviours in this article, and the previous one tell a further story of narcissistic behaviour, sense of entitlement, fuel-seeking, and triangulation. Changing of the ring. Miss Markle received a stunning engagement ring from Prince Harry after he popped the question in November 2018. The Duchess of Sussex showed off a huge sparkler in a BBC TV interview, and for her official engagement photos. Since then, the piece of jewellery has been flashed by the Duchess on numerous royal outings. Meghan flaunted the ring at Trooping the Colour in June, when she also showed off a new Parve diamond eternity ring, believed to be a present from her husband. There has been a major change to her engagement ring less than 2 years after Meghan first slipped it onto her finger. This is interesting, as her original ring was designed by Prince Harry himself and includes 2 diamonds from his late mother, Princess Diana. Editor-in-Chief of Majesty magazine, Ingrid Seward, said, "I find it a bit odd Meghan would want to alter a ring that her husband has especially designed for her. A royal engagement ring is a piece of history, not a piece of jewellery to be updated when it looks old-fashioned." Meghan has altered the band despite Harry saying yellow gold was her favourite. Speaking at the time of their engagement, Prince Harry said, "The ring is obviously yellow gold because that's her favourite, and the main stone itself I sourced from Botswana, and the little diamonds either side are from my mother's jewellery collection to make sure she's with us on this crazy journey together." Meghan added, "Everything about Harry's thoughtfulness and the inclusion of Princess Diana's stones and obviously not being able to meet his mum, it's so important to me to know that she's a part of this with us. Having played on such importance at the time, when of course it suited during the seduction period, the necessity to assert control through an alternative method has resulted in altering a ring, something which is highly unusual in itself, not including altering it so it fits, of course, and trampling over the feelings of her husband. It is not surprising to find Miss Markle previously looking to emulate Princess Diana, and once embedded, begin to remove this particular trace of the deceased princess. Exhibit sense of entitlement, contradictory behaviour, the assertion of control, and a lack of emotional empathy. There are plenty of other instances, including clashes with Kate Middleton, the refurbishment of Frogmore House, and Harry's failure to attend the memorial service to 11 Marines. He is Colonel-in-Chief of the Marines, and instead go to the Lion King premiere instead with the Duchess. There is plenty more evidence available which contains similar stories and instances of grandiosity, poor boundary recognition, haughtiness, and a lack of emotional empathy. The gift keeps on giving. It is evidence based on the first part and the multitude of indicators detailed above that the narcissist is very much remaining in place and behaving as expected.